Yeah, I think we are good now. And I think my screen is visible to all of you right now. I will just quickly share the event guidelines, which are the guidelines or the points you have to be followed while participating in this event. So I request you all to follow this guideline. I will just explain the guidelines. So the first one is, like I previously mentioned, the event will be recorded throughout the course of the event and it will be shared later. And during the webinar, please turn on your camera if possible, because this event is intended to be an interactive one. So interacting face to face with the speaker is recommended by us. So if possible, please turn on your camera and please mute your microphone during the entire presentation until the presentation has ended and the discussion period begins. And after the presentation, please wait until the speaker announces further information on how the Q&A session will be carried out. You will be either ask the questions live by using the raise hand function, or you can type the questions in the Q&A section. So it will be in either way. It will be announced later. And when the feedback link is available, please let us know how you felt about the event by answering a few set of questions. So that's all about the guidelines. And we are moving on to the agenda for today's event. So today's event is mainly consists of three sessions. The session one is an introduction by Mr. Vishnu Shankar, who is the head of operations of ArtSlant Innovations, and it's followed by a session by Mr. Gary Lim, head of education, Google Cloud Southeast Asia region, and it's followed by the third and final session, which is of course a Q&A session. So that's all about the three sessions, and right away we are moving on to the first session. So for that, I would like to welcome head of operations of ArtSlant Innovations, my friend, my colleague, Mr. Vishnu Shankar for that. Over to you, Vishnu.
Thank you, Sharon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vishnu Shankar. I'm handling the operations at ArtSlant. ArtSlant is an official Google Workspace reseller in India, Middle East, and other Asia regions. In addition to that, we work as a business consultant who basically try to listen and find a solution to your business problems that are preventing your business from reaching the next level. So as a business and growth consultant, we try to solve problems in regards to three pivotal services domains that encapsulates 30 odd services, which are digital transformation, growth consulting, and product development. We are also partnered with Google Cloud, Intuit, Adobe, Google for Education, Google Ads, Canva, Ingram, etc. That's a brief about our company. I'll be happy to take any service-related queries offline after the event. We will share the details as well. Now coming to the main theme of our event. ArtSlant, in association with Google Cloud, is organizing this online event focusing on remote teaching with Google Workspace for Education. We know Google Workspace for Education is helping school or educator communities to increase their impact with tools for real-time collaboration and communication on a secure platform. Also enhance instructional impact with advanced video communication, enriched class experiences, and tool to drive academic integrity and lots more. So it's high time as a Google Workspace reseller for India, Middle East, and other Asia regions. We need to reach out the benefits to related communities that over the time are working or learning remotely with the same. Therefore, I hope this initiative could bring your learning or working experience a seamless one. Thank you very much for your attendance on a very busy day. Over to you, Sharon.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Vishnu. And we are moving on to the second session by Mr. Gary Lim. So, as the head of education for Google Cloud in Southeast Asia, Gary is responsible for helping to transform the government and education agenda in digital transformation of industries through successful executions of a broad set of initiatives within Singapore and the ASEAN region. He engages with educators, government allies, and policy leaders as their trusted advisor to ensure all stakeholders are provided with the latest in education technology to enhance learning environments, and ensure a steady pool of future-ready individuals. So, without any more further delay, I would like to welcome Head of Education for Google Cloud in Southeast Asia region, Mr. Gary Lim. Over to you, Gary. Stage is all yours.
Sure. Thanks a lot. And, I will just share my screen now so that everyone will be able to see it. All right. Now let me know when it becomes, okay, it seems to be visible. Everyone able to see the screen? Good?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so
And
Yes.
okay, great. And my audio is coming in perfectly fine as well, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. So I think once again, thanks for inviting me for this webinar. It has always been a pleasure to speak to individuals who are passionate about technology, who are passionate about education, and I'm glad to see that even at 3 p.m. I think it's 3 p.m. in India time today. We have about 33 people on the call, and I will be going through some slides, but as what Vishnu and Sharon mentioned, let's take this as a very interactive session. And if you do have any questions, feel free to pop it in the chat, or at the end of the session, I will also leave some time for questions and answers, because I'm sure that you will have many questions about what Google is doing in education. How are we dealing with the current pandemic that's affecting all of us, not only in the Asia Pacific region, but also in the United States and other parts of the world as well. I wanted to pivot my presentation more towards how do we expand some of our partnerships to really create smart and digital schools to enable student success. I will also be sharing some of the stories where there's someone who raised your hand. Should I address?
Yeah.
Yes. How can I help? Yes, your question, please.
I'm a student. I'm running Google Bean for months. And I would not like something that Google Cloud is a huge, a huge process, a huge, many of applications, many of softwares. But in my country or in my state, only use Google Meet, no other one Google Workspace educations. So how do we implement that? That's my question.
So I think let me just rephrase for the rest of the audience over here. I think your question is really how do we as Google enable the larger population to actually be able to use some of our software tools and technologies to continue to learn, to continue to upgrade ourselves, and to continue to enable what I call student success. Am I right?
Yes.
All right. So I think, you know what? In fact, what I will do is that as I go through the presentation, these are some of the things that I will actually be covering, right? So let me just run through the talk tracks that I'll be covering in the next 45 minutes or so. I will be talking about what Google Cloud is, especially for those who are relatively new in this space. And I will also share the impact of COVID-19 in education, as well as also the trends in higher education as well. And to your question that you asked earlier, it's really about what is Google doing in terms of helping the larger population, not only in the Asia Pacific region, but also in other parts of Asia, in LATAM, EMEA, the United States. How are we actually helping them to upskill themselves through the different programs that we actually have? And I think last but not least, I will also touch on some of the education transformation stories as well. So let me run through them along the way. I wanted to start off by talking about the Google Cloud's mission, right? I think in every company that we join, there is always a mission statement that we try to align to. And for Google Cloud's mission statement, it's really about accelerating every organization's ability to transform through data-powered innovation with the best infrastructure, platform, industry solutions, expertise for digital transformation. And I took the effort to highlight 3 different words here, which is really transform through data. I'm sure every day as you go past whether you're working and whether you're studying, you would interact with data in some way or some other, in some way or some other way, right? And it is actually through data that we really are able to power the best in terms of the decisions that we make, the predictions that we also make, as well as also some of the slightly less common decisions that we need to take in order to get the best outcome, right? And one of the things that I wanted to also share with you is that many people know about Google, right, as a company, but not many people know that we actually belong to this larger organization called Alphabet, which consists of Google, which consists of Google Cloud, Google Maps, and a few other startups like DeepMind, Verily, Google X, Google Fiber. So this is really, in terms of, if you look at Alphabet, this is really the whole of what Google actually stands for. And this is where our unique value proposition actually remains. If you do look at other cloud service providers, they are usually providing infrastructure services. They are usually providing collaboration services. But I think for Google and to me, I count myself as a very lucky person to be able to work in a company like Google, because I get to be able to immerse myself in all the different types of technology that actually Google actually has today. For one, of course, in every day that you launch your browser, I'm sure you go to the Google search page. I'm sure you go to the YouTube search page, look for videos, and I'm sure many of you are also using the Android mobile device. And also to find our way around different places, I think we are also using Google Maps to actually help us navigate our way around the different places that we are today as well. And those are really the icons that you see at the top of the slides. Now, the icons that you see at the bottom of the slides, where it consists of things like Google Ventures, Google X, Verily, DeepMind, these are companies that we have acquired to actually advance the process of innovation so that we can also build some of these innovations into the services that we provide you as a consumer of Google today, not only for today, but also for tomorrow and also for the future as well. So this is really, sharing with you the big picture about what the Alphabet company is all about. Now, as we look at Google Cloud, I will take you through from the bottom up, right? So from workforce transformation or even education transformation, you will be very familiar with Google Workspace, or what we used to call G Suite for education or G Suite Enterprise for education, right? So in April this year, we have actually rebranded some of our products, and we've rebranded G Suite to become Google Workspace. because workspace is the very thing that helps us to collaborate, to work together, to innovate, and to bring about new ideas. And of course, beside Google Workspace, you do see the Chrome logo as well as the Android logo, which you'll be very familiar with as you use your browsers and your mobile devices on a daily basis as well. We also address line of business challenges through things like Google Maps and Apogee. And maybe I will just touch slightly more on Apogee because maybe not many people know about this. If you look at a typical scenario where you are working in a company, what typically happens is that you would have computers or servers that are legacy, from the legacy era, right? And if you look at banks, for example, if you use the ATM today, you do see many of the new features that are available. But if you look behind the scenes of an automated teller machine, it is actually legacy systems that are running behind that. And there is a reason why companies actually choose to continue to use legacy systems, because they are already tested and proven. And especially for banks, as I called it out, you know how much if there is a miscalculation of 1 cent per person, you can imagine how much money that's going to cost the bank, right? So, and in terms of some of these things, we also accelerate things like application innovation. We also generate data insights, as well as also modernize your infrastructure as well, using this thing called the Google Cloud Platform. Now, I would like to touch a bit about COVID-19, right? It's been more than a year since COVID-19 actually hit us. And the spread of COVID-19 has really dramatically altered campus life. In fact, it has also been a testing time for students, educators, and also institutions alike. 32% of students actually feel less academically prepared to attend an online class, primarily because they were very, very used to attending a face-to-face class where they enter a physical classroom with a physical teacher, and you go through textbooks and materials that helps you get ready for the future, right? 75% of students actually feel less emotionally prepared to actually handle the daily stresses of having an online quiz, having an online exam, because they are very also used to having to go into a very large hall and having an exam to actually, do the exam in the hall and answer the questions as well. And 30% of them, 30% of our students actually feel less able to afford it, right? In many countries, I think we are fortunate. We have governments who have actually invested in devices to actually help us to learn. Governments have also invested in devices to help us to innovate and collaborate as well. But it is not always the case, right? If you look at countries which are emerging, like for example in the Philippines, in Indonesia, in Thailand, these are countries where budgets are not always available, and students actually have to fork out some of their own money in order to purchase a device such that they can learn from it as well. So 30% of them actually feel less able to afford online lessons as we roll out some of these virtual lessons in the face of COVID-19. But is it only the students who are feeling the stress? Actually, the leaders of higher education institutions are also worried as well. Now, even if things will return to the normalcy, right? There's going to be a very clear need for efficient learning delivery, right? As you learn in previous times, you go to a bookstore or you go to a book company and you buy a textbook and you learn from that. Now, with COVID and with many of the school closures, these things are no longer normal, where we just walk into a bookstore and we buy a textbook and we learn from it. Many of the lessons have actually transited to become an online learning delivery, where attention level, the interest level, and the engagement level becomes very different, right? I want you to take a couple of minutes just to imagine yourself as a teacher today and not walking, but coming into a virtual classroom where you have 20 students in the classroom, whether it's a Google Meet or whether it's other video conferencing software. Just imagine if you were a teacher today and you're coming in with 20 students that are available with the cameras on. Are you able to tell how well are they understanding the lessons? How well are their well-being, right? And also how well are they, being engaged in the lessons that you are actually delivering? It is not as simple as what it used to be when we were in a physical classroom and when we were able to identify students who were perhaps lagging behind, or students who were perhaps, having a bit of a blank face, where they kind of like looked at something that's not very understandable, or something, or a topic that they are not really clear about. So things have actually changed a lot in the face of COVID, where learning delivery has actually needs to become really much more efficient and engaging as well, right? I will also talk about the trends in higher education, right? In institutions, there was always a need to generate content faster and better than ever before. In my previous slide, I talked about how do we generate content that's engaging, that's exciting, and that's something that enables students to really understand and to really apply the knowledge that they have learned. Many of you who have attended other webinars in the past would have also heard similar statistics, like 85% of the jobs that today's learners will be doing in the year 2030 has not even been invented yet. 1.3 billion people have competencies that are misaligned with the work that they perform. And in education, specifically in Google, we are actually working together with employers and also governments to understand what are the key innovation areas that we should focus on, and to develop curriculum that will actually help some of these 85% of learners today, and also the 1.3 billion people who have competencies that are misaligned with the work that they are performing today. There is also a need to identify a data driver analysis to assess the gap and also generate and deliver personalized content. I'll give you an example. If you are an adult learner today and you are going into a class with 20 years of experience in networking, for example, you may not need to spend 5 days in the class learning the basics of networking. You could even spend 2 days and you would be at the same level of the people who have spent 5 days in the class learning about advanced networking, how to interconnect routers, how to interconnect computers, and how to actually do internet connectivity and also data transfer in many, many ways. So these are things that we are actually working with the industry to make sure that we assess the gaps that are visible today, that we generate and we deliver personalized content to allow speed, relevance, tools, and also the right outreach to the correct people and to the correct audience so that they can learn better and they can learn faster with the correct content and also a more efficient and effective learning delivery as well. The other thing that I wanted to speak about is really about the aging population. Now, many of us today, I do see some very young faces in the audience today, and thanks for attending. But if you look at the population today, many of us are actually aging, right? If you look at it, 68% of employers are investing in reskilling and upskilling their employees, and 81% of business leaders plan to rise employee certification in professional training to recycle the corporate skills as well. 72% of pre-retirees actually plan to continue working after retirement. And for those who plan to enter a new line of work, which is about 58% of them, they actually require more flexibility. And when I talk about flexibility here, I'm actually talking about the flexibility of skills where you may have graduated from a computer science degree, but you also need flexibility to change your career midway in case there are some other areas where you are actually more employable for, or in the very worst case, if you are retrenched and if you need to go into another industry, that flexibility will really help you in terms of getting that next job. Now, there are also 50% of us who keep up with technology as a way to improve our working ability. In the past, you will notice that computer science, it was a vertical by itself. Today, in any job that you go to, computer science is actually a horizontal, whether you are in finance, marketing, business, or any other professions. You are expected to know some basic IT knowledge in order to perform your jobs effectively and efficiently as well. And the anticipated skills gap is also evident. By the year 2022, which is not very far off, there will be about 6.2 million new IT jobs. And these jobs are going to be mostly in the cloud-related fields. Now, 60% of STEM jobs, and STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math, jobs are actually in computer science. But yet, only 2% of the STEM graduates actually fill this pipeline. At this point, I wanted to tell you a personal story. During my time when I was applying to university, everyone was applying for business, finance, marketing, and including myself, right? I was also trying to to get into the Faculty of Business and all that. And it was by chance that I actually went into the School of Computing in the National University of Singapore. And as I look back, I have actually no regrets, because if you look at today's jobs, every single job that you go into, whether is it, like as I mentioned, whether is it business, finance, marketing, you need to have that ability to operate IT functionalities in everything that you do today to make your jobs more efficient, to automate some of your tasks that you do every day, so that you can free up your time to do other more value-added services and help the company to grow in terms of their business, in terms of their pipelines, in terms of their recognition in also the region and also the world. Employers are also hiring for skills above academic success. In the past, during my time, when I went for a job interview, the first thing that they asked me was, can you provide me with your primary school leaving exam results, or your O-level results, or your N-level results, or your A-level results, or your university degrees. But I think today, even for me, as I hire individuals for Google, I look at the skills that they have beyond the academic success that they have achieved. Because it is a very real reality that the skills that you possess today goes beyond the academic success of whether you get an A for math, or whether you get a C for Chinese, or you get a B for Tamil. I think all these are really different parameters that employers are actually looking for today. And in this respect, and also to the question that was asked earlier, Google actually launched Google Career Certificates. And this is really something that we are actually not trying to take away the degrees that students are actually going for, but we are actually targeting the adult learners who may not be able to afford the time to do another degree, or individuals with family or work commitments, and also individuals, and also providing individuals with additional pathways of learning for mid-career individuals, as well as also university alumni as well. In the effort of also helping out people who have been affected in the COVID pandemic, we have also launched this new initiative called Grow with Google. And Grow with Google is really about creating an economic opportunity for everyone by providing free tools and in-person support to help people grow their skills, their careers, and also their businesses. Now, when we bring the best of Google programs and tools together, we help small businesses help to find new customers online. We help job seekers and students to also boost their resumes with a new certification so that they stand a higher chance in getting a job. And for educators, as I mentioned earlier, we teach them the digital basics of video-based curriculum in order to make their lessons more effective and more engaging for everyone to understand, and to also be able to learn about the knowledge that they would need in order to get their next job, to get their next promotion, or even for retirees to actually get also other jobs that will occupy their time as well. Now, the Grow with Google program has also collaborated with Singapore in what we call the Skills Ignition SG, SG being the short form for Singapore. And together with the Singapore government, the Skills Ignition SG actually builds in-demand skills for the digital future through vocational and on-job training. This is going to be a very familiar slide to all of you. As you bring out your mobile device, be it a phone, be it a laptop, a Chromebook, many a times we will type in www.google.com and we will start searching for the things that we want. And one of the things that we have done and put in place during the COVID pandemic is to actually integrate job search right into the Google search engine to allow people to search for jobs that are available within their vicinity of where they are staying or where they are living as well. In this next slide that I'm actually showing to you, the Google search has actually connected over 100 million people to job listings all over the world. And if you look at the right side of the slide, I will encourage you, if you have your phone with you or your mobile device with you now, take it out, type in, open a browser, type in www.google.com and type in 3 words, jobs near me, and click on the search button. When you do that, the Google search actually brings out the search queries of all the jobs that are available near your location, and it actually tells you what are the full-time jobs, what are the part-time jobs, what are the jobs that are near you, and how long will you actually take to get to the office, to get to the location of where you can find a job as well. Now, as much as we talk about technology, we also need to pay attention to institutions as well. Institutions must provide flexible, blended learning experiences for student success. Blended learning and virtualization will play an increasingly significant role not only for students, but also for academics and also staff. Blended learning is something that I would also like to share with you a story that is based in Singapore. In Singapore, the schools actually start at 7:30 to 7:45 a.m. in the morning. Some of the schools actually during that time will actually throw out some of the lesson plans, right? A 5 minutes lesson plan, and they will throw it out to the handphones or to the laptops of the students, so that the students and when they come into the school, they will have a prior understanding of what they are going to learn for that day. I would be very honest to also say that some of the parents also feel that this is actually a bit stressful, because even before reaching the school, you are actually starting to learn new things for the day as well. But on the flip side of it, I'm sure many of you have experienced that if you know the topic that you are going to learn in the next 1 to 2 hours, your learning ability actually increases a lot because you know the topic, probably not 100%, obviously, but you know the topic and you will be able to understand roughly, what the lecturer or the teacher is talking about. And that's what blended learning and virtualization is going to be really important, and also going to be playing a really increasingly significant role for all the education stakeholders, from students to academics and also staff. There are also two approaches to education innovation. Number one is technology-led, where you look at how digital technology can help to add value to my learners. So I'll bring you back to an example which I shared earlier, is that if I am a network specialist with 20 years of experience, but I know that maybe my job is not very secure, I will go for a skills upgrading program. But because I have 20 years of networking experiences, I may not need to spend 5 days or 5 months understanding or learning the new technologies that are available for networking. I could spend perhaps 3 days to 5 days, and I can bring myself up to that level of upskill and to be able to do the jobs that are required of me for today. There is also the business-led direction of how do I reimagine education as a continuum of skills for all individuals. In the past, many of us would go from primary school to secondary school to junior colleges to polytechnics to vocational institutions and to universities. In today's world, that cycle doesn't end when you complete your university degree or when you complete your vocational certificate. That journey continues to remain a cyclic model where you learn new things every day, not only when you are in primary school or in your full-time studies, but also after you graduate and become an alumni, you go back to your old school or other schools to actually learn new skills that will help you in terms of your careers, that will help you in terms of getting that next promotion, or to actually be able to understand what are the requirements for you to get a new job if you happen to be out of employment at that point in time as well. From a Google Cloud perspective, we also recognize that, there is a difference that we need to make. And the difference is really about a graceful integration with our existing systems to collaborate with applications for education. And there is really no need to swap your existing infrastructure, because you have spent money, you have spent dollars, you've gotten people trained on your current infrastructure. But how do we then deliver a greater value for your existing systems so that you will be able to provide new services for your consumers as well? And we don't build rigid software as a service application or solution, but we are able to also customize for each and every institution as well. And from there, you will also benefit from Google's ongoing innovation, as well as also the best AI and also smart analytics, where you'll be able to train your models easily with your own data, unlock real-time insights, predictions, and also have a fully integrated process with the rest of the Google Cloud services. I will skip this slide and I will probably just show you a very simple example of what a student success services looks like. Let me just put on my... So if you see over this part here, you'll notice that there are actually many of the... Let me just put on my laser pointer so I think it's easier to see. If you just look at this portion over here, these are your applications that you use every day, right? Applications that you may have implemented 10, 20, 30 years ago. And it doesn't matter because these are the applications that have been serving you well, that you have paid for, and that you have trained your staff to use and to become very efficient on. We are not, from a Google Cloud perspective, we are actually not asking you to change these systems that you are so familiar with. But instead, what we have come up with is actually a student success services platform, which comprises of 6 different modules where you have the optimized enrollment and admissions. Because if you have been an educator before, you'll know that throughout a 12-month period of a year, enrollments and admissions are really the time where teachers, administrators are the most busy. And if we are able to use automation to help in terms of enrollment and admissions, this will really help not only the administrators and the teachers, but also the students who are enrolling into the various institutions that they are choosing for as well. Virtual assistant for 24/7 support. We know very well that the millennials today, we don't really study at the time where between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., right? We study at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and how do we actually provide that 24/7 support to ensure that if you have any questions that you need to have answered, how do we then use the student success services and the virtual assistant to support you in your learning as well. In terms of smart analytics and student engagement and retention, we want to make sure that every single individual, unique student remain successful, and also to retain them in school to make sure that they continue their service, not service, but to continue their learning, to make sure that they are successful in their careers in the future as well. Now, AI tutor is something quite close to my heart because I was a teacher for 13 years before joining Microsoft and then after that Google. And the AI tutor was something that helped me generate new content for my students to learn, for my students to understand, and for my students to apply. And these are things that technology today is able to do for you to really automate some of the processes so that teachers can actually free themselves up to actually help students who may be weaker in some of the subjects or some of the topics that they are actually learning. Scalable distance learning requires almost zero explanation, where as we looked at COVID-19 and the school closures that has happened, we also needed a platform that enabled scalable distance learning, where with an internet accessible machine, we are able to log on to lessons online or virtually, and we are able to then learn and understand the theories behind what the teacher is actually teaching us, not in a physical classroom, but in a virtual classroom as well. And the last part is really about the incidents and the intelligence management, where we want to maintain that the whole campus environment that we have in the school continues to remain a safe and a very conducive environment for students to actually learn and to succeed in everything that they do. We also connect with multi-channel interactions with all our users through things like social media, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, and all the various social media tools that you actually use. But the most important thing to us is actually the green box over here, where we want to make sure that we get actionable insights from all the data that we have collected to make sure that every single individual student, who is actually very different in terms of the knowledge that they have and also in terms of the abilities to learn, so that we will be able to take remedial actions to help students who are weaker, students who may need additional help, and students who may be at risk of dropping out of school. So this is really something that we at Google Cloud, we have actually built, and we call it the Student Success Services, that is built especially for education to ensure that every student remains a successful one, a successful, unique student in their own institution, in their own right, and also in their own specialization that they have chosen. So I wanted to stop here today, and let me just take a look at the time. So I think I've spoken for about 47 minutes. I wanted to leave the time open for questions and answers, so that you can also ask me what are the things that Google is doing in terms of other areas, and trust me, it can be related to the presentation that I've made, or it can be questions that you wanted to know about Google in general as well. So I will pause here for the time being, and I will take questions from the audience if you have any. So let me stop sharing my screen. And I'm happy to see that, after a certain period of time, we still have 38 people online. And thank you for staying online and also, really trying to grasp the different types of experiences that Google has actually put in, the different types of programs that we have actually implemented to really help education, to really push forward education despite the COVID pandemic that has happened. Let me just take a look at the chat, and we do have some questions, and let me address one of them, which is making connection isn't as easy as teaching online. I couldn't agree more. Now, what we have done in Malaysia is that we have actually, in Malaysia, they are currently, I think, the number 2 state in terms of COVID infections, and many of their schools are actually closed today. Making that connection is very difficult for the teachers to be able to understand how the students are feeling, not only from understanding lessons that are being taught, but also understanding the well-being of students who are in the online sessions that they are conducting. How are we actually making this? So how are we actually making this something that's simple for our teachers to actually make use of. It's really about providing our teachers in Malaysia dashboards where you'll be able to see different groups of students, in terms of facial expressions, in terms of body language, in terms of discussions, and to understand, which are the groups of students who are very well, involved in the discussions, very well involved in the ability to discuss different matters that actually arises throughout the whole lessons. So we have actually provided dashboards for all the teachers in Malaysia, not to penalize any students, but to really see how our students are actually performing online during the sessions as well. The only caveat that we have is that the students have to turn on the cameras. Right. So I think the next question is really, give us a lesson on how you teach with digital tools. I'm not sure how many of you actually have used Kahoot before. Anyone? It's actually an online quiz. So, as opposed to talking for 60 minutes using a Google slide or a PowerPoint slide, how we actually make some of our lessons interesting is actually by using external tools that are integrated into our Google Workspace for education, like Kahoot, for example. And at each logical point where we finish a topic, we will actually launch a Kahoot quiz with 3 different questions, and we'll get our students to actually answer them. And sometimes we give a prize, sometimes we don't. But, for students, it's always the ability of getting the answer right and getting, being proud of themselves to get the answer correct. So some of these things we have actually done, created application program interfaces that will integrate with Google Workspace for education as well. The next question is, can a non-profit organization implement Google for education? Of course you can, right? So for non-profit organizations, you actually have a special pricing for Google for education as well, because we know that you are an organization that is not out to actually make profits, and you are doing good for the rest of the citizens and the society as well. I really love the next question is my personal experience working in Google during the pandemic, and what were the plans of Google to improve the services, especially in the education field. I think I've kind of answered the second part of the question about how Google has actually improved the services in the education field through the various programs that we have actually put in. But my personal experience in Google was very much different. I started in Google on the 2nd of March in 2020. And many of you would know that during that time was actually the height of COVID-19. It was actually the start of the Wuhan, I wouldn't say the Wuhan virus, but I would say the start of the COVID-19 virus. And I was actually the first batch of Googlers that actually entered the company. And I didn't have a chance to actually go into the office. So my onboarding experience, my orientation experience, and the many things that I've done was actually done through online learning. And it was great because I think the enablement teams in Google actually implemented very, very unique features to help us learn in a very interesting way and to keep us engaged throughout the day. from 10 a.m. Singapore time all the way into 4 p.m. Singapore time as well. So that's actually a very long time within a day, and it's not just one day; it's actually 5 days a week, right? So that's something that I could share with you. Could you name us a few applications by which we can perform science experiments like online streaming? Well, so I've spoken about the Google Cloud platform. So the Google Cloud platform actually allows you to do things like online streaming. And if you are looking at, hosting your webinars online, that comes together with what we are using today as Google Workspace for education as well. In the interest of time, I'll probably take the last question. And is there any trusted app by which we can take attendance of students during online sessions? Sharon or Vishnu, I think you are the host for today's session. There is actually a function for you to actually click and say you want to know the attendance of every person that has attended today's session. So let me just bring that up. I will not be able to see it because I'm not the host of the session, but Vishnu or Sharon, if you are the host of the session, you would actually be able to do a check mark and say that you want to know the attendance of all the people who have attended the session today. And it doesn't go, and it doesn't stop there, right? It also tells you how many people have actually dropped out at how long. So if you have 40 people who have attended the session at the beginning at 3 o'clock today, the attendance tracking will be able to tell you that there were 5 people who dropped out after 15 minutes, or that there were 10 people that dropped out after 20 minutes. So these are things that we have actually built into our Google Meet system, primarily for education purposes as well. So I'm conscious of time. I know I'm 9 minutes away from, I'm 9 minutes after the allocated timing. So I will pause here and, I will stop here. And I hope that all of you had a very good understanding of what Google is doing in education today, not only to help individuals, but also to help the society and also the international community at large. So thank you again, once again, for having me today. And I hope that the session was enjoyable and also engaging.
Can we ask a question?
Sure.
Yes. Greetings, sir. I'm Ajita Vinod from Kerala. So I have 2 questions. One is about, you said there will be a special pricing for non-profit organization. So I would like to know more about it. And
Sure.
what is the procedure for that? And so, we are familiar with certain tools of Google, and there are can we have a training session where these applications we teachers can incorporate in our classroom?
Yeah. So let me address the first question first. Okay. Let me just address the first question, and I will probably paste the link in the chat for you. So we actually have a dedicated link primarily for non-profits. So I've just pasted the link in the chat. That link actually helps you to understand all the different steps that you need to take. And it's not really a lot of steps, but it's just steps that you need to take in order to register yourself as a non-profit. And once you have actually registered yourself as a non-profit, you actually get a certain discount for Google Workspace for education as well. I hope that helps.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Ma'am, Vishnu here. We'll help you with the training and the registration part, actually.
Okay, thank you, Vishnu.
We'll do that offline.
Yeah. All right. Once again, thanks for having me, and I hope the session was good. And definitely looking forward to having an opportunity to meet some of you in person once the borders actually open, and the COVID pandemic actually gets over with and done. I know it's going to take some time, but let's remain confident, let's remain safe, and let's really continue to see how we can prevent the spread of the virus as well. So thank you very much, and I see that you have a feedback that you need to fill up. So I will just pause here and let you do the feedback.
Thank you so much, Gary, for such an informative session. And I think if you have any more questions, you can send us an mail at info@artsland.co, and we will reply all the mails. And since we are past 4, we are coming to an end. And so, like I said before, this is the feedback link. You can let us know how you felt about this event, and you can also share your comments and how we can improve ourselves in the future. And we will really appreciate it if you do so. And also, I would like to thank you. I would like to thank Mr. Gary for being here and delivering such an informative session. And also, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here, attending this event, and making this event a success. And we hope we will see again future events as well. And once again, thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice day and take care.
Thank you for having me, and have a great rest of the week. See you all.
Yeah, thank you.